Hello everyone and welcome to our webinar today in partnership with Sutherland. My name's Neil Perry, I'm the broadcast editor for FinTech and InsurTech magazines. Now today's session is called Accelerating Claims with AI from FNOL to Settlement. So let's break that down and explore that a little bit first. Well, forgive me for being a little bit dramatic as we kick things off, but I think it's fair to say we are at a pivotal moment for insurance when it comes to claims processing. It's all around 60% of claims operations still rely on hugely manual workflows, which means the result that you could probably guess and expect. That's higher costs, slower resolutions, and impacts on customer trust. So, as our title suggests today, we're looking today at how AI is transforming claims processes and drawing out better business results too. So by the end of this session, this is what we are looking to have covered off with our guests, who I will introduce in just a moment. First of all, straight through processing and automation, really leveraging AI to automate claim setup, triage, and all the way through to settlement and litigation. We're looking at a digitally augmented workforce. Augmentation, absolutely the word for me when we're talking about AI. We're using AI to optimize staff's productivity and really maximizing their technical skills for value-based work. Also, maximizing AI's cognitive functionality to study and execute unstructured data patterns to drive the next level of efficiency and effectiveness. We'll look at improving customer experience, which is of course all important, and how this tech can really support with compliance. So if you're not guessed by now, an awful lot to do and only around 45 minutes or so to do it in. But thankfully, I've got some real expertise on the call today to take us through this. I'm joined by Ashi Bagdadi, Vice President, P&C Insurance Practice Lead at Sutherland. Also with us, Michael Krikheli, Co-founder, CTO of 5 Sigma, and Ronak Doshi, Partner at Everest Group as well. Hello, everyone. Great to see you all. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Neil. Good to be here.
Yeah, great to see you all. So the way we are going to be doing this today is we have a presentation which is going to give us some visual clues, really help with some statistics and diagrams and so forth. So we're going to be bouncing between our presentation and our conversation. So there's going to be plenty to keep us going through over the next 45 minutes or so, as I said. So, as I said, plenty of expertise on our panel, but let's go into this first. Let's go into an intro for Sutherland. Plenty of information here to go through. So, Ashi, if you could just take me through this first slide, and then we'll work our way through our deck. Ashi.
Absolutely, Neil. Thank you. First of all, pleasure being here. And like Neil, you mentioned, claims is at the epitome of all the technology outbursts that we're seeing in the market today. But quickly going on to Sutherland and a brief introduction, we are one of the market-leading solution provider when it comes to digital solution in the insurance space. Covers the entire value chain, right from sales and service across life and annuities to all the way to settlement and litigation from a P&C perspective. Whole suites of solution covering the end-to-end spectrum, with digital and everything to do with automation AI at the core of it. We work with a host of partners and into developing some really path-breaking solutions. And one very strategic partner is with us, that's 5 Sigma. And hopefully today we bring out and share our experiences for everybody attending this session to probably learn a thing or two. But to keep it brief, Sutherland caters to the end-to-end spectrum of insurance value chain with digital transformation at the core of it. But I should mention that across 25 years of my being in claims world, I've not had anybody pronounce FNOL, Neil, the way you pronounce the energy and the way you pronounced it. So I've definitely learned a thing or two that I'm going to take back to the team today.
I'll take that as a compliment. Thank you very much indeed. Well, we're all here to learn something, so that's exactly what we are working on today. Right, but there are a whole series of questions that I want us to work through today. But let's find a bit more out about 5 Sigma. And Michael, you're the best man to take us through that. Over to you.
Thank you, Neil, and it's great to be here. 5 Sigma, we're a scale-up insurtech company based out of Tel Aviv, and we're really partner with the industry players, but also build two distinct solutions. The first one is a full claims management system with embedded AI from the get-go that built to scale for the entire industry. And with it, we introduced Clive, which is our digital worker and our AI adjuster that sits both within the Five Sigma claims management platform, but also sits in parallel to any claims management platform in the world. We are really looking to bring these new tools and new wave of technology to help streamline the entire process, as we'll speak of today through this webinar.
But I do think we missed a trick not inviting Clive individually to come and join us. So next time you do chat to Clive, do pass on my apologies. I was not being right. But as I said, we have questions to cover. So let's crack on with those. So this is our first one. How do you see the claims landscape shaping up in 2025? So Ronak, let's start with you. The floor is yours on this one to begin with. Talk me through it. Your thoughts on this?
Neil, again, thank you. And I think this is a good question to start the conversation with, right? If I look at claims as an area, we have conversations around, we have massive claims losses, and that's been one of the challenges that everybody's dealing with, and the overall cost of claims as well as the experience of claims has been consistent challenge. So we ran a survey and asked our customers, hey, as you look at claims as a process, what are your key priorities where you are putting in a lot of your money? And I think two things that came out stand out, right? So one was technology. We need to provide better technology to our adjusters, to our supervisors, to the operators who are running the processes, and give them the tools so that they can serve our customers better. We want to make our employees and our customer experience better. So I think those are two big areas where we saw bulk of the investments. And as we kind of double click on this, right? So what is happening under the hood? Why? What is driving this is very important for all of us to understand. At one end, we want to reduce the number of claims, right? Not just kind of do claims efficiently. We want to reduce the number of claims. So safety is a key priority. So that's why technology, like, hey, how do I measure safety before the claims happen and maybe avoid and protect the claims? I think that's the key piece, right? So the mandate that everybody is telling us is, I don't want to pay the loss, but I want to avoid the loss, right? Or it's about not just insuring the customer, but it's about protecting the customer. And that's the sentiment that we are going in with the investment that are coming out here. And this translates into a lot of customer experience initiatives that you've seen. And if you look at the model around enhancing customer experience in the claims process, we see it on the next slide, right? At one end, we are talking about data to make better decisions, tools that allow for much better self-service and faster resolution, give a significant amount of transparency and transparency and overall, communication, so that you have the right data as a customer wherever you need it, and at the same time have the resources with our employees, right, our adjusters, supervisors, and others, that they can deliver these experiences really well in an efficient way. And given we are running a business out here, we want to do this at lower cost, reduce the overall abuse, leakages, fraud, and make better margins while doing that. And that is where I know this topic of AI in claims is so important, because AI in claims makes this conversation from being a cost center to a strategic center for the organization. So very excited to have this conversation as we go along.
Absolutely. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And thank you for the very obvious cue of when to move on the slide deck there. I was very grateful for that, Ronak. Let's move on to our second question now here, and that's with legacy systems still dominating insurance ops, how can AI be seamlessly integrated without disrupting existing workflows? There is very rarely a fintech or insurtech conversation that I'm involved in with when the term legacy systems does not crop up. So crawl, walk, run, AI integration approach. This sounds interesting. If we can start, Ashi, with you on this, talk us through it, please.
Sure, absolutely, Nate. So yeah, as the name suggests, crawl, walk, run is primarily the three stages or pretty much a framework, at least in Sutherland, that we deploy. One, to build confidence. Second, to make sure the governance is robust, because we want to make sure that we're doing everything accurately and in a fair basis. And then build confidence, not just with the customers, but your internal staff as well on usage of AI and the value it drives. And again, three phases can be as simple as using as one use case, and it could be as big as solving hundreds of problems at a time. I think what it typically involves, or primarily from an organization perspective, is it typically in a crawl phase, it can be as simple as deploying a solution that does all your reading of documents, summarizing them, so the adjusters don't have to go through hundreds and 200s and 300s of pages to kind of give that value back in terms of time, so they could focus on value-based activity, build confidence with that primarily, and then move on to the second phase, which is walk, where you integrate a lot of this AI with your processes, which primarily means the skill adjusters that you have are not spending a lot of time doing laborious activity. Their job role changes from processor to almost like a QA checkers and so on and so forth. And run is obviously a very advanced model where pretty much crawl and walk have evolved to a point where you just doing the specialist work with the complete end-to-end high-end auto tech integration, where you just the decision maker more on rather than looking at a claim from an end-to-end perspective. Now, the way typically it integrates, especially when it comes to legacy systems, and we all know how infested at times, especially insurance industry is with legacy systems, is through workflow wrappers. And there are different ways and methods in which we could extract data, integrate with these solutions. So it doesn't mean that if you're still on the legacy systems, this is absolutely a doomsday for you and there's no AI applicability. There are enough use cases in the market where this has been solved for. And hopefully today in the session, we will bring to life some of those use cases in this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I know if I had a pound, euro, dollar, or any other unit of currency you like for every time I've been told that a tech or AI problem is actually a human problem, rather than the other way around, this absolutely lays that out perfectly. You've got to do it in these different steps. Michael, I saw lots of sage nodding from you. So if you want to come in on that.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to Ashi's words that the new wave of these AI technologies also allow ingesting and understanding the unstructured information that's part of the manual workflow. So there's an opportunity here to leverage this data that you already have somewhere in a PDF file, rather than kind of building this huge integration project with, structuring that information, which was kind of the previous approach. We see that even if you get, a standard operating procedure with a 100-page document, these new tools can actually leverage this to add value, even in your legacy system world. So we see that actually as an opportunity to leapfrog this area.
Okay, let's push on. As I said, we have a lot to cover off today. So this is our third question we're looking at today. Many insurers talk about STP, but how achievable is true end-to-end automation? Now, this is a question we could have spent the entire webinar. In fact, we could have done a whole series of webinars on this particular question, but we're going to try and round it up in a few minutes. So wish us luck. This is the poll that we are doing on this, which should have just flashed up on your screen if our tech people are doing their job properly. So Ashi, just take us through this and the stats that we've got up here.
Sure, absolutely. Thanks, Neil. So we ran a survey and to find out that, what are the top execs primarily feel about what percentage of straight-through processing, or STP as we call it, are they able to achieve. Surprisingly, 45% of them mention that they've only been able to achieve 0 to 10%, and 18% of the execs globally said that they've been able to achieve up to a 20% of straight-through processing. But one thing that remained common across all the execs is that the potential is quite high, where people believe that in the near future it can go as high as a 60 or a 70%, and some of them actually are targeting an 80 or a 90% of straight-through processing. Now, in order to achieve straight-through processing, I think it's also critical for us to understand what are the barriers that avoids any insurer or carriers from doing so. So I think if you flick Neil to the next slide, primarily, and I think just to focus into the barriers, I think one of the things that we've seen with AI as it's progressed is that the barriers have changed and evolved and matured over a period of time. So I know when we started off almost close to a decade ago, one of the barriers used to be from a customer vulnerability perspective. So if a customer is vulnerable, you would not want to use a straight through processing because they would struggle to understand digital and technology. But a very mere problem that was caused by AI was so quickly solved by AI, where there are so many tools and technology that are now available that you can gauge customer vulnerability, whether they're coming through a digital solution or talking to you or emailing you, without even seeing what your naked eyes can't normally detect. So I think that's a wonderful example. But in broad essence, there are four key barriers for straight through processing. We've spoken about the most biggest one, which is legacy system and technology. And we briefly spoke about on how there are solutions such as wrapping around using wrappers and stuff like that to overcome that. Second is the business complexity. There are so many non-standardized processes and claims specifically, which has inevitable amount of fraud behaviors in it, which most of the times ends up being not the candidate that carriers would want to put through as straight through processing. Third thing would be primarily from a regulatory and a compliance issue. As we see around the world, there are regulations that get tighten and tighten and tighten, and obviously we work in a very regulatory industry, and it's inevitable that we have to comply and we have to give assurances not just to the customers and the clients and the carriers we work to, but also to the regulatory body that we're doing the right thing 24/7. Last but not the least, STP is dependent on good level of data, good quality of data, and availability of data, because the decisions based on data and logic, and the input has to be accurate for an output to be accurate as well. Michael, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I agree with everything that you said. I think that complexity of claims really varies dramatically. We talk about claims as if they're one thing, but if you have a bumper accident is a very different process than God forbid someone was injured or anything like that. And we also believe that there's a wide spectrum and a lot of value. It's not like either it's fully manual or fully STP in terms of the processes. There's a lot in the middle. So automation can go a long way, even in the harder side of claims. On the lower end of types of incidents, as Ashi said, leveraging the new technologies, we can overcome a lot of these challenges.
Thank you, Michael. Right, just to briefly touch upon our use cases and a success story, similar to what Sutherland has been able to successfully deliver in the last 24 months, is for one of the world's largest homestay experience provider, where the total claims volume is close to 1.2 million, predominantly through the technology, through solving data complexities and solutions like that. We've been able to drive up to a 40% straight through processing right at source, which means the customer, when they're checking out, or primarily the host who's leasing their property, is when they put a claim through, we've capturing all the right data. We have all the technology to validate, ensure any fraudulent activity is picked up, and there are immediate payments being made. Pretty much, we now deliver that experience of not days or weeks, but claims being paid out in seconds, which is a pure testimony of what we were talking about from a straight-through processing standpoint.
Yeah, those are all excellent examples, and looking at those ones we've got up on screen there as well, very much so. And the complexity of some of those claims, I think that's such a good point. A final lighter word on that, I can remember a particularly good stand-up comedian who did this whole set about real insurance claims that are being read out. And one will always stay with me, and that is I reversed onto a driveway that isn't mine and drove into a tree that I haven't got. I'd love to see most insurance systems deal with something like that.
You may never know, Neil.
You never know. You never. I'm sure there's more unusual ones than that.
Yeah.
Right. Let us push on. Let us push on. Who said insurance can't be fun? Right. Question number 4. How can AI augment rather than replace human decision making in claims operations? And augment is such an important word for me here. Whenever I'm talking to AI and tech leaders about the application of AI in so many different areas. So let's dig into this one. Again, we could do an entire webinar, particularly on this particular subject. So, here we go. Here's Clive. He is here. Michael, over to you.
Yeah, so really believe that really matching to that crawl, walk, run metaphor, we're looking into 3 stages really of where AI can be integrated towards the process. And to your point, Neil, about legacy systems and processes, you don't want to kind of rip and replace everything because that just doesn't work. But then you want to have human adjusters leveraging these tools from day one and kind of assisting the humans to do their work. And as everyone thinks, no one goes to work and says, "Oh, I'd love to read this 1,000-page document and get this one number from page 572," right? That's no one's dream kind of thing. And AI really can assist right now with these types of tasks from the get-go. And as this moves forward, think about these digital workers, and this is how we think about Clive, as working alongside adjusters to automate a lot of these tedious work, but also kind of bring in the data that you need to make any decision. So the humans will kind of be in the driver's seat here, but then they'll have a lot of help across the life cycle of claims to do the analysis. And then as we scale these solutions and as we integrate more and more of them, we talked about STP, right? This is obviously a point where AI leads the process, and then the role of humans, talking about augmenting, is a little bit changing, right? They are now monitoring the AI solutions. They're now ensuring their good work, and they're now kind of level of supervising them rather than tinkering specific claims and specific kind of data points and doing these types of things. So really believe that this is where the world of claims management will go. And we're starting off to pull these layers one by one.
Yeah, for me, this is where it really cuts through the hype, doesn't it? This is the genuine, useful application of AI where you show it can really make a difference, as you say, for the person who would have to sit down with a 1,000-page document. And sorry, I jumped in on someone. I didn't quite catch who it was. I do apologize.
Actually, so it was me. I just wanted to make a point. This kind of sits quite well with me. So I started my career as a claims adjuster 25 years ago, working on bodily injury claims. And I honestly, I feel envious when I see the workforce of today with the AI. I remember it would take me at least 2.5 days just to interpret a medical report, do the valuation and stuff like that, which in today's time, a claims adjuster would come on the desk. As Michael mentioned, he's had everything summarized. He's just now a decision-making authority, which primarily means you're putting your experience to the test here, which kind of answers the taboo that people have about AI taking over jobs. I confidently say this: it enriches the job rather than taking away the job, because you're learning more at a far more quicker pace rather than going through thousands and thousands of claims over 2 decades to be able to get to a certain point of knowledge.
And to your point, Ashi, I think that also this really brings back the job to adjusters. Like the adjuster's role was never to kind of read through documents and kind of find data. The adjuster's role, to your point, is to really make decisions and help customers. And all of these tools is bringing them back to that make decisions, help customers point of view. And you're right, Ashi. It's really amazing time to be in these lines of business.
And it's always so good when we bring it back to the customer, because that is the point essentially.
Yeah.
But let's move on to this full automation conundrum as it is described here. Ashi, I'll let you take a lead on this one, because it's a huge question. Huge question.
Yeah, absolutely. Neil, and I think it goes back to the example that I just gave a few seconds ago. So if we take about an auto insurance damage claim, and again, this is a real scenario for a real customer that we're solving at this point in time, where the customer wants to understand that when a third party puts a claims against their policyholder, they want to understand about the claim as quickly as possible. They want to understand the damage caused to their vehicle as quickly as possible. They want to understand injuries sustained as early as possible. In old school world without AI, this will all be done manually. It will be done through phone calls. You will try to talk to the third party. You'd miss the phone call. Third party would ring you. Versus what happens now, whether it's an email or the claim is lodged through a digital portal, you have AI that understands the claim, picks any fraudulent behavior, basically looks at the entire vehicle 360 degree, can tell you what is the chances of it being a total loss or being drivable, and if it's repairable, primarily what the estimates would be on that, and can also recommend which would be the best place to repair it. Now, for me, that is one of the most complex use cases being solved, and adjuster's role being enriched, as I was explaining in the previous slide.
Just move things on here. Another success story here. Actually, if you just want to continue with this one, please.
Yeah, absolutely. On the same lines as I mentioned before, again, similar use case of a UK insurer in this case, one of the biggest UK GI players, pretty much the same story using AI, how we've been able to transform the entire indemnity spend by identifying claims early on, ensuring that AI enables good indemnity management. So the negotiations are very pointed. You're not going around the bush. And all of that then leading into world-class customer net promoter score, which is why we are here.
Absolutely right. I'm very conscious of the time, so let's push on to question number 5. So for all of you, what are the most impactful areas where AI can help optimize indemnity costs and operational expenses? I'm sure every single one of these questions we could do an entire webinar on. So I think you gave tremendous value, anyone who's watching this today. So let's go through the AI benefits, every step of the insurance claims handling process. This is why we've got a slide deck today. This is exactly why we need one, just to go through it. Ashi, talk us through it, please.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I feel like a kid in a candy store where you got hundreds of choices and you've been asked which are the 10 most favorite ones. Very difficult. But let me break this down for you. I personally think AI plays an expansive role in each of the value chains that you see in front of you. But any claims adjuster or someone who's a claims expert will tell you that the maximum role it plays, it's right at the beginning, which is at the claims intake stage. When everything is fresh, you capture as much information as possible. But majority of your indemnity and your customer outcome and settlement happens at the pretty much end of this value chain. But AI has to play a significant role on the top of the value chain, right from claims intake, FNOL as it's also called, right to the damage and the appraisal investigation stage, to capture all information accurately, to make the right decisions, to put the claim on the right path, which then ensures you're settling the claim faster, you've repudiated any fraud. If you have to litigate, you're litigating the right files, and you're doing the right thing, which is for your client, for your carrier, and for your staff. So I'd say it's a mixed bag, but it plays a significant role in each of these value chains. Right. I think if I was to talk about a use case again, we keep coming back to use cases because, like we mentioned at the beginning of this session, this is an experience sharing example, and I'd love to hear from my colleagues here as well. One of the most powerful use cases, again, we've seen in this regard is subrogation, and what AI has been able to help is primarily to get to a liability decision at a very, very early on stage. Recovery is an outcome of who's liable and who's not. And in the olden age, when I say olden age, I'm talking about without AI. You depend on the knowledge of the claims adjuster, and you depend on the data that's captured over 3, 6, 9 months to be able to establish liability. With AI now, pretty much on day 1, day 2, day 3, based on minimal information, you can predict this is the direction in which the claim's going. You can identify recovery's opportunity right up front. and you can optimize it by then putting on your recovery strategies to make sure that you do a like-to-like behavior with who you up against.
Yeah, and on that point, not only that AI can help with the liability decisions and kind of the recovery process, but it can also help with the process itself that includes summarization and documentation and kind of pushing these forward to multiple parties. So it can really optimize the entire process here to get the best results.
Ronak, if I can bring you in here as well, your thoughts?
Absolutely. And I think just continuing the thought that Michael mentioned, right? With the advancement in AI technology, specifically what we're seeing with generative AI and agentic AI, we are now talking about data which is audio, video, images, PDFs, and several other things in large data sets, which would have taken, as Ashi said, right, significant amount of hours for somebody to scan through. Now you have insights that you can query, right? So AI is becoming my new workstation, right? So I'm just doing queries and it becomes a user interface and I'm kind of dealing with the process directly with it. And then now the next step is I'm also asking it to take actions. So the rate at which it is evolving, all of these use cases I think mentioned out here are going to have a lot more of agentic components, which can learn and communicate with other agents and perform the task a lot more autonomously as we see this, and allow the employees and the adjusters and supervisors and others a much better experience, right, and a much better scale of what they can operate with. So this is really exciting.
Absolutely, and my heart goes out to Ashi 25 years ago, having to plough through all of that the old-fashioned way. So, yes, we're all with you at this difficult time, Ashi. This is a safe space.
The greenness in the beard, Neil, is not a fashion statement. Experience.
Right, let us move on to question number 6 of 7. So we are making wonderful headway on this. With AI influencing claims decisions, how can insurers ensure compliance and transparency? For me, this is such an important question here because it's the foundation of making sure there is trust in the entire system. So let's go, Ronak, if you could start with us on this, because I know you've got particular expertise here. Talk me through this, because this is something I think is absolutely fundamental when it comes to that relationship with the customer.
Yeah, and again, I think what we've been speaking about so far, right, from S2P to AI and processes and all of these, that are great things. But again, realizing that we are in a customer business, we are in as much as a services business as a product business when we look at insurance. So making sure that we protect the customer, their privacy, and make sure that there is no biases as we kind of work around it is going to be very critical. And claims is one area where it kind of hurts a lot, right? So this is protecting the insurance brand. This is about being compliant with the local regulations, be it at a state, federal level, and at the same time doing what is right out here. And this is where we need the right governance mechanisms, right tools to be able to make decisions as we start adopting AI across processes. So the basic decisions is, are we able to trace how we made decisions? Like, how did AI make decisions? Are we able to audit it and check that it is not doing decisions which is unfair? Are we making sure that it is not infringing on any copyright or any IP that is somebody else's, right? And are we making sure that there is a governance mechanism that where we can take corrective actions if it is going in the wrong directions? And at the same time, being able to articulate and communicate all of that back to the regulators, because the more AI we use, the more active the regulators are going to be, because they are here as agencies to protect the customers. So we do believe this is where a strong governance engine is important. And the way to do this is definitely there are tools and processes in place, but I also believe it starts with people. So communicating to the people who are building these, as well as using these, around what are the challenges and what are the pain points that they need to address in terms of governance, responsible AI, and fair use of AI is going to be very critical, so that education plays a big role as well as we do the change management here.
Ashi, if I could just bring you on this very quickly before we move on to our final scripted question, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I fully agree with everything that Ronak's mentioned. But I think what is also becomes an acid test for me, specifically having ran through larger operations, is actually also listening to what your customers and your staff are telling you, especially when you're doing straight through processing or you have operations which are AI enabled. And you would know from the sentiments that you get that you're doing the right thing by ensuring those claims are being paid accurately, they're being paid timely, and you're processing claims far more faster. Notwithstanding all the stuff that Ronak's mentioned, which forms basically the pillar, but the acid test remains that customer experience at the end of it.
Yeah, that was a really thorough run through there from you, Ronak. Thank you very much for that. Let's move on to question number 7, if we can. How should insurers measure the success of their AI-powered claims initiatives? Another crucial question for me, because there's always the question about marking your own homework. You've got to be tough on yourself here to make sure you're measuring the success, as Ronak was saying, about having these strict measures in place to review and check everything is working as it should. Well, Ashi, I'll start with you here because this is a thorough run through, and again, exactly why we've got some slides running here. Ashi, can you just take us through that to start with, and then I'll bring Michael and Ronak on this.
Yeah, surely, absolutely. Basic principles of claims always been that there are 3 areas that you impact or should impact as part of your claims management or claims adjusting: experience, efficiency, effectiveness. And primarily what you see in front of you is a whole processes that helps you drive these 3. But for a minute, I'll go back to when Ronak started. He made a very powerful point about claims avoidance, how we use AI to make sure that we avoid claims from a perspective that there's a saying in the insurance world that the best claims experience are the ones where they don't occur in the first place. And I think AI plays a big role in that, as well as in these value chains. Now, primarily, if we understand each of these value chains, help you move the process ahead in the claim, or it makes sure that you managing or mitigating your risk from a perspective that the claim doesn't happen in the first place, whether it's AI with some other technology such as telematics and so on and so forth, or AI on its own. But if I was to summarize, based on use cases across Sutherland, different clients we work with, across clients that Michael has, and obviously the broader experience that Ronak and the Everest Group has, from a automation, efficiency, experience, and effectiveness perspective, we believe that it touches each of these value chains. And what you see primarily in the red is the efficiency it provides to the adjuster. The blue line items that you say is more of on effectiveness or an efficiency or an efficacy perspective. And then the blue ones, primarily the dark blue ones, are primarily more from an experience growth standpoint. So to answer your question, Neil, it impacts the whole value chain, and it impacts or disrupts the value chain in a very significant way. And very soon, I believe that the claims processes that exist today will look very different in the next couple of years' time as the AI and the technology advances at the speed in which it advances today.
And if we just cover off the 3-dimensional approach to measure success of AI-powered claims, talk us through this, and then Ronak and Michael, I'll bring you in on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we briefly touched upon these throughout the session. But like I mentioned, experience, efficiency, and effectiveness are the 3 broader headlines where you measure success of AI. We talk about experience. It has to be customer who's at the center of everything that we do. A customer adopting the AI processes, which means if claims can only be done through an app, are they liking it? Do they want to do it, or do they still prefer talking to a people? If they still prefer talking to a people, which means there are core issues which lag there. Last, from an experience standpoint, like I mentioned, you got to listen to the customer, you got to listen to the staff for the bits that they like in the way you processing these claims now. Efficiency is pure from a perspective of, I gave a bodily injury example that would take me 3 days. It can now be done in 30 days. And pretty much there are benchmarks that can be set from a market perspective and specific feature perspective through which AI effectiveness and efficiency could be managed. Broadly, from a effectiveness perspective, indemnity spend, claims that should be litigated, claims that should be paid, effective negotiation, And we could go on and on and on. Like you mentioned, I could speak on these three topics and effectiveness across classes of business all day if I had the opportunity.
Well, we've only got about 45 minutes, so I'm going to stop you there if I can. Michael, can I just bring you in quickly?
Yeah, 100% agree with everything that Ashi said. I'll just say that our customers that we briefly talked a little bit about this, but bringing them towards you get a demand package that will take you, that is a 1,000-page document. You analyze it automatically and respond to it in matter of, a couple of hours rather than a couple of weeks. You then remove a lot of that on the end of the process, on the litigation costs, and on the effectiveness of the entire process, just because you jumped on all of this in the beginning. So as Ashi said, AI will transform all of these points dramatically, and we're already seeing that.
And Ronak, if I can give you the final word on this particular area before we go on to some pre-submitted questions we've had from the audience. So over to you, Ronak.
Sure. And again, as Ashi and kind of Michael mentioned, right, there's a lot about measuring AI, effectiveness, efficiency, and experience when it comes to claims of today or the insurance of the today. But let me also kind of pivot us to insurance of the future. And as we think about AI, is not just about automating claim settlement or automating claims processes. It's about infusing intelligence into everything that we do as part of the process, which means it is an opportunity to think about as insurance products and business model and experiences evolve, as innovation happens there, how does claims continue to keep pace with it, right? Because as we are talking about AI in claims, it should transform it from a catastrophic claims from like a reactive piece to a proactive piece, right? And that's what we're talking about, right? AI is your best defense is what we're talking about. So how do you measure that becomes very critical. And that's where all of these dimensions that we spoke about, how is it helping us to drive that growth, that experience, service delivery, innovation, as we are thinking of both the speed at which things are changing but the eventual change as well, right? So measuring AI impact as a piece of how you as an organization is driving velocity of change is where I would kind of leave you with.
Absolutely right. Well, we've covered a huge amount of ground in around sort of 40 or so minutes, but we do have a few pre-submitted questions to go to. Let me just bring some of those up and I'll pick out a couple. Here's a good one. Can you share some perspective on AI governance and how different states are looking at it? That's a great question. Ashi, if we can kick off with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a very broad question, and again, conscious of time. It varies by state, and it depends what are they trying to achieve, and again, depends from classes of business to classes of business. Some do it from a very effective way, from a perspective ensuring, going back to the example that we've spoken about, that where it's taken a lot of people to do this manually, you're using AI, and then to get that done quickly. So for example, if you take life and annuities example, leave absence management changes by every state. There are some very good AI product solutions that pretty much has taken the entire complexity out and can be simplified quite easily. But in some states, that's actually not being used for efficiency, but that's being used for compliance and governance and so on and so forth. So to answer, I don't think there's a specific pointed use case which is favored across everybody, but it's a mixed bag.
Michael, Ronak, anything you wanted to add on that at all, or do you think Ashi's covered that?
So one thing that I would add is, as we look at the regulators in each state, they are looking at this in the components of data as a whole, which is the data privacy, security, IP protection, then the consumer protection piece, which I spoke about earlier, and then the use of AI in processes and how does it lead to resiliency of the business, right? Because it shouldn't hurt insurance as a business, broader financial services as a business. So that's the other lens that also gets taken care of. Obviously, each state has its own framework of how they're framing up. but those common components I'm seeing apply across.
Okay, and I'm going to jump onto the last question if I can. So sorry to jump in on you there, Michael. But this is a cracking final question, and you'll see why I've left it till last. I will class it under putting you on the spot, which I'm allowed to do because I'm the host. So, my favourite subject, legacy systems versus AI. What's the most effective way to integrate AI into claims without a core system overhaul? And here's the killer bit of the question. I don't know who put this one in, but it's brilliant. Who's getting it right? What a great question. Who wants to pick that up first?
Maybe I'll start with kind of our approach to all of this, right? And that's kind of where in the introduction we talked a little bit about Clive that sits within our claims management system, but also on top of any other claims management systems. And the way we approach this is really to have this integration layer that gets unstructured data in. And as I said and as we all said during this session, it's now available. The technology is available to understand this unstructured data, and then bring all the intelligence back with the laws, the regulations, the workflows, the knowledge of understanding the business, and all of that, and bring back these outcomes to the adjusters. And frankly, to Ashi 25 years ago, even if we saved him 2 days of analysis and he needed to read an email to get this analysis, he would have read that email, right? Because it just saved him 2 days. And as we kind of scale this process, there's more and more deep integration into the agentic worlds of actually taking action. And lastly, I will just add that as these tools progress and as Clive, for example, progresses, Clive and these types of tools will be the center of the user experience for the adjusters, with the legacy systems kind of going into the place where they are system of records, and they are kind of the backend databases where the data sits rather than where everyone is doing their work. And we see in that run or lead world that we discussed, we really believe that this is how the user experience of the adjusters will look like at the end of this road.
Very quickly, Ronak, if I could bring you in very quickly.
Yeah, just to add what Michael mentioned. First of all, Michael, I think very well said. In my experience of being or dealing with this for the close to a decade, the most successful ones I've seen are not the ones who are not on a legacy systems. The most successful ones who got it right are ones who have a mindset of failing fast, being hungry, and embracing the technology and AI as something to improve them rather than something basically which will make sure that they lose their job. I think it's that mindset that you need to be able to completely transform your thinking and the application of the solution to completely look at the way your business is being run to how it should be run, are the ones who got it right. So technology is an enabler, but application plays a majority of a role here in my experience.
And Ronak, I'll give you the final word before I look to wrap things up.
So I would say bringing the data and the insights at the point of action is where you can do a lot of good in terms of integrating AI into claims without doing a lot of core system overhaul.
Absolutely. Okay. I'm going to get in trouble with our producers because I've gone over time slightly, but you know what? Our conversation was flowing. We've covered an extraordinary amount in a very short period of time, but we are going to have to round things up there. Of course, you may have other questions. There's an email address up on your screen there, marketing@sutherlandglobal.com for any queries or feedback, and I'm sure they'll be able to help. But I'm afraid that's all we have time for today. My thanks to all my guests. Really enjoyed your company today. My thanks to Clive, even though Clive couldn't join us in person. My thanks to Year 2000 Ashi, who I'm sure would love to have contributed to this conversation. But anyway, the recording of this webinar will be available shortly. You can come back, watch it again, share with anyone you think may find it useful. But now, thanks for watching, everyone, and bye for now.